free agency has indeed begun in effect, and a man who's in the middle of it all, who just negotiated Antonio Brown's contract with the Oakland Raiders and has so much more going on, kind enough to fit in a few minutes for us right now. Drew Rosenhaus here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Drew?
Doing well, Rich. Sorry if there's any background noise, but it's a hectic time with free agency and everything. But for you, always glad to talk for a few minutes here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So let's get right to it. When did actually things begin to get real between Antonio, you, and the Raiders, Drew?
Really on Friday. Things heated up on Friday evening, and Steelers reached out to me and said that they reached an agreement with the Raiders on compensation, and then they gave the Raiders permission to talk to me. I spoke with one of your good friends, Mike Mayock, and also John Gruden at length about they're wanting to finalize the trade for Antonio, but they knew, like every other team in the league, that we sought a revised contract. We wanted to make sure that Antonio, for the rest of his contract, would be the highest paid receiver in the league, and that was something that needed to be addressed. Otherwise, they would, inherit some of the issues that we had with some of the other teams. So that's when negotiations began, and Mike Mayock did a heck of a job. He was really a good negotiator, and after a lot of discussion and back and forth, we were able to agree on a number very early on Sunday morning.
So when it all came on Sunday morning, that's when the number finally came to?
Really, my recollection is it was after midnight. So whether you want to say Saturday night or Sunday morning,
sure.
It was probably around just after midnight on Sunday morning.
Okay, so when it all comes down to it, Drew, I mean, where did the money rank in terms of importance? Because it seems that sometimes money was viewed as respect by Antonio, and obviously seeing how the Steelers were on occasion making contractual maneuvers with him to try and stay away from renegotiating with multiple years left in his contract. Where did this all come down to it in terms of importance?
I think it was a combination of things. One, it was evident after meeting with the Steelers in South Florida a couple weeks ago that included Art Rooney, the team owner, and Kevin Colbert, the GM, with myself and Antonio, that both parties agreed it would be in everyone's best interest to move forward with the trade. Once we got to that point, it was clear to us that it would be important for Antonio to get with a great organization, an outstanding coach, preferably a great offensive mind, somebody that would know how to take advantage of Antonio's tremendous talents, and also a terrific quarterback. Because as a receiver, you're limited if you don't have a coach that can help get the ball to you, and B, obviously you got to have a quarterback that can deliver. And then Antonio's had such a great run with the Steelers, and the Steelers really are one of the classic franchises in the league with all their championships and Hall of Famers. And there are very few organizations that can compare to them, and certainly the Raiders are right up there with them. The silver and black and Al Davis and the incredible tradition that the Raiders have, all of those things really made this a great fit for Antonio. And John Gruden is, one of the greatest offensive minds, I think, in the history of professional football. And this will be a thrill to match AB up with him and a super talented franchise quarterback in David Carr.
So, quick hitters for you on this. Did John Gruden and Antonio speak before dotted lines or T's were crossed and I's dotted?
Yes, they did.
They did?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Absolutely.
At any point, did
once the team was given permission to communicate with
Sure.
us, we made those arrangements.
Okay. Did you at any point ask if Derek Carr was going to be the quarterback of the Raiders?
I didn't specifically ask, but it was evident in our discussions. They involved him throughout the process. He was mentioned prolifically by the Raiders, and he was also in touch with Antonio. I'm assuming that will be Antonio's quarterback moving forward, but of course we don't have any control over that, and that would just be our assumption moving forward.
A few more minutes.
And our hope.
Sure. Okay, and your hope. And a couple more minutes left with Drew Rosenhaus. Best you can tell, did Antonio Brown and Big Ben have a conversation to see if anything between the two of them could be hashed out to avoid all of this?
I'm not sure. If they did, it's not something that I discussed with Antonio. And let me just backtrack a little bit. You know, once the Steelers gave us permission to negotiate with Oakland, I don't have firsthand knowledge of Antonio and Coach Gruden talking, but I was under the impression there was some kind of communication. I just don't know specifically if there was, and whether it was texting or through a third party, or whether they spoke directly. And I never really discussed that with Antonio.
And finishing up the conversation on Antonio, how aware were you of Antonio's social media postings prior to the postings, Mr. Big Chest, et cetera, Drew?
You know, I mean, Antonio knows he doesn't, he obviously is someone that is an avid with his fans on social media. He's had a great presence on it. We typically don't discuss those things. I'm not directly involved. If he calls me and asks my opinion, I'll share it with him. But, certainly I follow everything that he does. And, at the end of the day, Rich, we're in a good spot. I mean, quite frankly, he made history. Here's a man that, things fell apart with the Steelers and everyone agreed that it would be best to move on. He was able to do that and land with a new team that has a great attraction. And now he is, once again, the highest paid receiver in the National Football League.
Yeah,
we were when we did his last contract 2 years ago. And, this thing couldn't work out any better for us on all levels, right? And he'll always love the fans in Pittsburgh. And you know what, Rich? I'm sure that there will be a mending of the fences at some point later in Antonio's career with the Steelers and the people involved.
Well, in terms of that with the contract, Drew Rosenhaus, how do you think this is sitting with the rest of the National Football League? Because, as you said, history was made for sure. 3 years left on a deal, 30-year-old guy. He is posting things on social media that is perceived by many as disruptive. We still don't really know what did happen in Week 17. He does have a 9-year Hall of Fame resume. There's no question about it, and an unquestioned work ethic for many of his teammates to say. But all that said, he got paid. He got the exit visas he wanted with a multiple-year contract still sitting on the table. How do you think this is sitting in the rest of the National Football League?
Rich, I think it's going to hopefully have a very positive impact on the National Football League. One thing as an agent that I'm a huge believer in, I've had discussions with the NFLPA about this, and they're very supportive, is, we're always looking for more flexibility in the ability to renegotiate and seek trades. It should be more of a two-way street in the NFL. You'll see a litany of players that just signed new contracts 2 years ago. Look, just in Detroit, they let T.J. Lang and Nevin Lawson go. I think it was last year that Lawson signed a new deal, and 2 years before that, T.J. Lang. That's just a small example of instances where teams commit to contracts with guys and then let them go. I mean, wasn't that long ago that we did a big deal for Timmy Jernigan with the Eagles, and the Eagles decided not to pick up his option? Hey, listen, that's fair play. I'm in discussions with teams right now about players that just did free agent contracts that are either going to have to take a pay cut or going to be released. If that's okay, then why isn't it all right for a player like Antonio, who we feel has outperformed his present deal and uncomfortable with his current team, to seek a better circumstance? If teams can do it, why can't players? So, listen, this is prevalent in in the NBA, and I think it's great if more players and agents can follow our lead and do what we did with AB and what AB has accomplished with other teams and other players.
Last one for you. How's Gronk going into this very crucial off-season period? What's his status, you think?
You know, I spoke with him recently. He's feeling good. He's healthy, thank God. You know, he got banged up in the Super Bowl. He played through a quad injury. He's one of a kind. I don't know what he's going to do. Last time I talked to him, he hadn't made his decision up yet. Not sure what that decision's going to be. Whatever he decides, obviously he'll have my full support. I know that he's been in touch with the organization. They're supporting him. They're giving him the time that he needs to make this call. And hopefully Rob will be very comfortable with his decision. And I just said to him, take your time, man. Make the decision that's best for you. Don't rush into anything, and think it through, and then do what you think is best. So that situation is still up in the air, Rich.
Hey, Drew, I really appreciate the time. Really busy time for you. Wanted to pick up the phone, obviously, with a huge piece of news that you were involved in over the weekend. And just having been at it as long as I have, you've been at it longer. I'm kind of wondering, back in the day, if there was social media, if he would have been able to get an Antonio Brown situation in the same way that Antonio just got.
You never know, man. You never know. It's been a privilege for me to work for guys and negotiate on behalf of Hall of Famers like Terrell and of course a future Hall of Famer in Antonio. So great talking to you.
Right back at you.
Hopefully one day you'll be in the Hall of Fame as well.
I don't know if I'll be suiting up, but well, other than just my once at the combine.
And Rich,
yeah.
If you ever need an agent to represent you, I see your 40 times are getting faster and faster. I'm here for you, man. I love what you do, and thanks for all the work on behalf of your charity.
Thanks,
as
Drew.
a guy that goes to the combine every year, I watch a lot of 40s that mean a lot to me in terms of how it affects our clients. But there's no more important 40 out there than the one that you run every year, and you have my admiration for that.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, Drew. Thanks so much. Let's stay in touch and have a good free agent period.
Thanks, Rich.
You got it. You bet. That's Drew Rosenhaus of Rosenhaus Sports here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.